Okay, good morning. We're starting a new simon today. Simon Reish Chof Hei, Dinei Birchas Shechionu, the halachas of Shechionu. So it says in the Mechab in Sif Aleph, Haroya es Chaveiroi la'achar shloshim yom. A person sees his friend after 30 days. He hasn't seen him for 30 days. Oimer Shechionu, he can say Shechionu. Va'achar shneimos chodesh, and if he hasn't seen him for a year, for 12 months, Mevarich Mechaye Hamesim. But he can only make the bracha if he is very close to him, he's a very good friend, and he is sameach b'riyosei, he is very happy to see him. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Aleph, Chaveiroi, ve'ein chiluk bein ish le'isha, v'hainu, that is, imroya ishtoi ve'imoi bita v'achosei, he can see his wife, his mother, his daughter, his sister, Kiven Shu Sameach V'Nehne B'Yirosam. So long as he's happy on seeing them, then it's shaykh to make these brachas. If you look at number 2, he says the following: Ubizmanenu Kosav Ha'ish Lavraham Shenishtakea Shlo Levarich Birchas Elu. We generally don't make these brachas. You don't see that we make these brachas every 30 days. You haven't seen your friend or whatever. V'chein kosav ha'kaf ha'chaim b'shem ha'ben ish chai v'chein kosav ha'orach ha'shulchan she'achshav mekilim ma'oid b'brachas eilu. We're very lenient about making these brachas. V'chein das ha'gonim shlem zalman Orach she'kiyom nagim shlo levarich brachas zu. Nowadays we don't make this bracha ela ba'ifonim yuchadim, only on very special occasions. K'goyin she'roya es achiv echad mishar krevov. For example, he sees his brother or one of his relatives, or beres chaveira karavlei, or he sees a very close friend, sheshav milchama, that he returned from war, for example. So sadly, it's not uncommon nowadays that a person has been away. I spoke to a friend of mine there at Israel. His daughter got married between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and then the son-in-law got called up. And he said a couple of weeks ago he was released, and it was the first Shabbos he spent with his kala. This is like 5 months ago. What is it? 5 months? So, you have situations where you're literally ensconced and you're away for a long time. So maybe for that sort of situation, from the brisker of shechoshesh levarich brachas. He was choshesh not to make these brachas shekiven shemavu b'shulchan aruch mevarachim davka chaveira hachavel of moed, because the Shulchan Aruch says it's chaviv olav. It's someone who is very close to you. Ve'ein b'kiyim ma nechshav lechaviv olav moed. How do you define that exactly? What's a good friend? What's a very good friend? A very close friend? It's hard to define. And then next paragraph, you express some sort of alternative. Oh, Baruch Hashem, we're seeing each other again, something like that. Because then you could be yotze with that. Okay, Kosva Paiskim. Can I just ask those who are listening online if they could just put themselves on mute? That would help. Kosva Paiskim. The Imra Chacham Michachmi Yisrael. Now we said yesterday that or 2 days ago, that if a person makes the bracha on seeing a great Talmid Chacham, then you make the bracha of Asher Cholak or Chedel B'Simen Reish Chaftal Sivov v'Gam Shechionu. So you make a bracha of Shechionu as well when you see the outstanding Talmid Chacham in Mushloshim Yom Shelo Ra'oi. So if you look at number 3, he says, that's only if you're very close with that Chacham. And the chiddush is she'ein birchas shecholak michachmasa pateres es birchas shechionu. However, b'chacham she'ein chaver lo yivarach shechionu. So unless you're really close with this particular God Hadar, then you don't need to make a shechionu. Okay, la'achar shloshim yom miri'ah rishona. So it's 30 days after the first sighting. V'im kibel mimenu ksav eish anoshim yodim mishleima yesh deis b'achronim. The Sophic brachas lahakal. Now that's another reason why we perhaps don't make this bracha very much nowadays, because if you receive some sort of communication from that person, whether it's a phone call or whether it's a text message or a letter or something, then there are days in the achronim Sophic brachas lahakal. So if you look at number 6, he explains, or Bia Gon Chaim Kanievsky, shekach hidas ha-mishnah Berurah. After Gai Birchas Shechionu, la'achar shloshim yom, shem hodiyu mishloima b'toch shloshim yom, lo yivarach Shechionu. well, what's the whole idea of the Shechianu? Suddenly you haven't seen this guy for 30 days. Oh, Baruch Hashem, you're still around. It's a big simcha, you make a Shechianu. But if you knew that he was around, either because you had an email from him, or you heard from other people that they were in touch with him, then that takes away the need for the Shechianu. So that's another reason why we don't make it. However, there are those who say that this concept of knowing that the other person's around is only relevant for the brach of Machai Mesim, for the 12 months. Because Machai Mesim suggests, wow, I didn't know you were still alive, and after 12 months you can make a bracha of Machai Mesim. We'll see other reasons for it as well. So again, another reason perhaps why we makel, because as the Mishnah Berurah concludes, Sofik brachas lahakel, and if in doubt, i.e. that you know that this person is alive, and therefore that's less of a reason to make a shechianu. So there are lots of reasons why we can be makel, and that's why you don't see these brachas made so much nowadays. Okay, so Sivkot and Gimel. So you make after 30 days the bracha of Shechion on seeing a close friend. Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'cholei brachas hu b'shem v'malchus. And the bracha is said on the occasion when you do make this bracha, you make it b'shem v'malchus. V'afilu birchas Machai Mesim. And that's the Magen Geber V'shar Harba Achronim. The lo keshuvas ponim iros. Okay, and after 12 months, you make the bracha of Machai Mesim. So that's Sivkot and Dalet. V'oz ein mevarach shechianu. So if you haven't seen the friend for 12 months, so you then make the bracha Machai Mesim, and you don't also make the bracha of shechianu, even though you haven't also seen him for 30 days. The tam bracha zu, this is an amazing thing. The reason why Chazal made a bracha of Machai Mesim for seeing someone you haven't seen for 12 months is kasa b'chidush ha'agadas lefisha b'chol shana ha'adam nidin b'reish ha'shana v'yom ha'kippurim im l'mavesim l'chaim. We're all judged Rosh Hashanah Kippur time. And therefore, if a person sees another person after Rosh Hashanah Kippur, and then a whole Rosh Hashanah Kippur has passed in the interim, because you are subject possibly to din of Misa and you've been spared from that. So that's one of the reasons why Chazal instituted this bracha. Okay, Sif base. So you've never met this person before, but you've heard of him, and then you exchange letters, like a pen pal that you've never seen. Even though you may be very happy to eventually meet, which is a very interesting thing, because in other words, you've never met the person in the first place, but you corresponded, you were friends somehow. So unless you saw them initially, you don't make this bracha. Says the Ramah, Yesh Omrim, bar mitzvah, that a person's son to become bar mitzvah, mevarich, yevarich, baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, sheptorani me'onshei shel zeh. Okay, so this is the famous halacha that we've seen from time to time. When a person, the bar mitzvah in shul, on the kriyas haTorah, whether it's on the Shabbos or the days before, on the Monday, Thursday before, you see the father making the brach of Baruch Sheptorani me Anshe Shel Zeh. Okay, let's see the Mishnah Berurah, Sifkot and Hey. So V'shalach le'ksavim. So a person has never actually met the person, never seen him, but they just corresponded. Then they don't make the bracha. It says Mishnah Berurah, Sifkot and Hey, Rotzalema Afal Pishe Hiritzu Ksavim Zemezeh. They exchanged letters. V'alidei Nasu Ayavim, and they got friendly. Mikol Malkum Kivan Shalei Nischaber Imei Ponim upon him. They never connected in person. Ein Ma'ile Ha'ava Kol Kach. The connection, the love, the friendship they have is not so strong. So that you're mamish so happy that you're seeing him again. That a person found out that his wife had a baby and you were abroad. Now you see your child in person for the first time. You make a shechianu. So in other words, even though with a pen pal you never saw this person in the first place, and you can be very close with him, corresponding over many years perhaps, but since you never initially saw them, you don't make a brach of shechianu because the simcha is not so strong. However, if a situation is with a wife gave birth and you were out of town, you were abroad even for just 30 days, or certainly for more than a year, then the simcha is going to be very, very strong, even though you never initially saw this person and the child, or your child, and therefore you would make shechianu, or you would make baruch Machai Mesim if it's more than 12 months. I'm sure there were situations in wartime and.
You know that you make shechianu on a child anyway.
Yeah, but this is separate to all of that. So if when you heard the news, let's say you get a telegram, let's say now in the army, yeah, we've heard of cases where they became parents in the army, they weren't allowed out for the bris or whatever. Sometimes you see pictures they're watching the bris on Zoom or something. But let's say they just heard. So when you hear the basura, then you can make a shechon on a girl and a metiv on a boy like we discussed. But now when you actually see them, then if it's more than 30 days, you can make a shechon just on seeing your child for the first time. And more than 12 months, so you make mechai mesim. Okay, so then the Ramah said bar mitzvah. So someone who makes a bar mitzvah, and then the Ramah says you make a bracha of sheptorani mi'on shel zeh. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkot and Vav bar mitzvah hainu kashenase ben shleish esrei v'yom echad. Right, so that means he's 13 years old and a day. So it's literally his birthday. Right, so that he's born on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So 13 years later, on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, now he's going to be 13 years in a day. V'achshav nagu shlei levarich ad shah shehana mispala b'tzibur b'Torah shliach tzibur oy she'oker b'Torah b'Shabbos Rishona. Or he gets his aliyah on the first Shabbos. That's the minhag nowadays. That's when you make it, and not necessarily on the day of his bar mitzvah. She'oz noidel rabim shehu bar mitzvah. So let's take a look at number 10. This is at the bottom, then it goes over to the back. V'chein b'yom chol im korin b'Torah b'yom shenase bar mitzvah lemachros v'katz v'arach hashulchan she'ravim nagu levarach k'she'olu l'Torah. Now that's our minhag, that we wait for the first aliyah that the kid gets, and then we make the bracha of Shbach Sheptorani. The Rabbi behalacha prate dinim. Check out the Bir Halacha for more details. Now he jumps to the back of the sefer. Yeah. Okay, then he says something very interesting. What about if a father has twin bar mitzvah boys? So what is the bracha? Should he make separate brachas on each one, or should he say Baruch Sheptorani me ein sham shel elu? Yeah, I don't know what the minhag is, but if you take a look in the back, this is at the bottom of page 55 on the first paragraph there in the bottom section. Va'achim tu'umim. If you've got brothers who are twins, shenasu bar mitzvah, das hagonim shlomo zalman arbach, shekol echad ya'aleh l'Torah. Each one gets a separate aliyah. V'yivarech ha'av pamayim sheptorani. He says the bracha twice. V'lo yivarech bracha achas. He doesn't make one bracha. V'yomem me'oin sham shel zeh v'shel zeh. Kiven shu mishana mitbeah shetov v'chomim, because he's changing the nusach of the bracha. Right? Not because you want to have equality or but because there's a halachic concern. You're changing the nusach of the bracha. Even if you don't say b'shem malchus. Me'idach das hagon Reb Chaim Kanievsky. However, Reb Chaim says sheyivarech me'on shem shel elu. So if you have twins, do you make one bracha or two brachas? It seems to be machlekes hapaiskim. Shlomo Zalman says you make two separate brachas, one for each child, and Reb Chaim Kanievsky says that you actually can make one bracha me'on shem shel elu. Interesting. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah. Mitzvah. We're at the first word on the line. Mitzvah al ha'adam la'aso suda b'yom shenaso b'no bar mitzvah. There is a mitzvah to make a suda on the day of the bar mitzvah, bo b'yom. K'yom shenichnas l'chuppah, like on the day that he gets married, there's a chiyuv to make a suda. Well, so too over here. V'hainu b'yom shenichnas l'shnas arba esrei. He comes into the 14th year, i.e., let's say he was born Rosh Chodesh Nisan, so the next 13 years later, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, he's now into his 14th year, that's when you make it. V'tam ha-suda, and the reason to make this celebratory suda is mishum da'achshav na'asa ish Yisrael. He's now become a man in the Jewish people, shenitztava b'mitzvah Torah, and therefore he is mitzvah in all the mitzvahs in the Torah. V'manar doresh have a sudas mitzvah, and if the kid gives a drasha, the mitzvah gives a drasha, then it becomes a sudas mitzvah, afilu eina b'yis hayom, even if it's not on the bo bayom. So therefore, ideally for a mitzvah, you try and make it on the bo bayom. That's the day when he becomes an Ish Yisrael. If, however, doesn't work out, you can't make it, it's not convenient, whatever it may be, then so long as the child gives a drasha, the mitzvah boy gives a drasha, so then it becomes a sudas mitzvah, and that's also okay. If you look at note 14, which is again at the back, he says something interesting. So this is now on page 56. It's at the top. I don't know, your numbering's the same? 56. So in paragraph 14, Va'af shegam bas, what about a bas mitzvah? Right? So there's a famous tshuva of Moshe, which he summarizes. Va'af shegam bas mischayeves begil yud beis v'yom echad mitzvah Torah. The same logic would apply to a girl. Once she becomes 12 in a day, she's also mechuyeves in mitzvahs. kabas mitzvah. Kosav b'shad is shuvah zikros Moshe she'ein mitzvah la'aseh suda bas mitzvah. There's no chiyuv, there's no mitzvah to make a suda for a bas mitzvah. Kivin she'ein nikar b'bas shenasa gedolah. Because it's not so recognizable for an outsider that she has become a gedolah. You don't make a suda on something which is not so readily apparent. For the boy, it's much more recognizable. For the minyan, yeah, we want to know: is he bar mitzvah yet? Are you bar mitzvah? Can you join the minyan? And therefore, he says to make a suda in a shul for a bas mitzvah, that's a problem. Ki yeshivas rishus, because it hasn't got a status of a sudas mitzvah. It's a sudas rishus, and it's like a birthday party or whatever. And therefore, making that in a shul halachically is problematic. For haisif, and then Rav Moshe adds, shesudas bas mitzvah yakol. He havel. Why are people doing it? They didn't do it yesteryear. It could be that this is because of influences of reform or conservative, and therefore Moshe was not very in favor of making a big party for a bas mitzvah. Even if you're going to make it at home, it's better to refrain. Etc. So that's why perhaps it's not such a popular thing to do, like we've said. But there are different, it depends how it's done in different circles. Okay, let's just finish off. Asif Kotzen Zayin. So we said Shep Toranami Onshe Pirush Ta'ad Achshav Ne'ena Sha'av K'Shechotzapem. What's the nusach of the bracha? Baruch Shep Torani Me Onshe Shalzeh, i.e., till now the father has been culpable for the averas of the son. It was your fault because you should have been mechanech better. And now he's become a man. It's his own issue now. Now he's bar mitzvah. You haven't got a responsibility of chinuch anymore. Listen to this. Mikol mokum yesh alav mitzvah seichocha k'sherosh she'einu misnayin kashura. You still have a mitzvah to rebuke him or to tell him if he's not behaving properly. And if you don't protest against his wayward behavior, then you get punished. The legar mishai Yisrael is no different to any other Jewish person. That if you have the opportunity to stop someone doing something incorrect from your own household where you can have some sort of influence and you don't, then you are culpable. And not only your house, if your area of influence extends beyond, it could be the whole city. Now the Ramah finishes off and says you should make the bracha of Baruch Shep Toranimi on Shazeh without Shem v'Malchus, and therefore that is our minhag. That's how we do it. And why is that? Why not doing it b'Shem v'Malchus? Because, says the Mishnah Berurah, because this bracha is not found in the Gemara. V'chein hek v'derech Chaim. Omnom, famously, ha'oman hadas ha'grob be'uroi. The Gaon, however, is of the opinion that since this bracha is found in the Medrash, Umaril also came halacha l'maisa, and the Maril says this halacha l'maisa, yesh levarech b'shem v'malchus, one should do it with shem v'malchus, v'ay b'chayodim shekosav gamkein ha'mavarech lehifsid. So just finishing on 22, he just says, which is on page 56, he says, Omnam the Chazon Ish, hayre levarech b'loy shem v'malchus, v'chein hagon Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, they paskin like the Mishnah Berurah not to say the Baruch Shep Torani b'Shem v'Malchus. Interestingly, he adds, but in brackets, Levarich b'Shem v'Malchus, hu azim b'Rech Abono b'Shem v'Malchus. It so happens that the Reb Shlomo Zalman on his own children did make the bracha Baruch Shep Torani b'Shem v'Malchus. Maybe he's he follows the line of the Gaon, which makes sense. The old Yishuv in Eretz Yisrael, that's where Rabbi Yashav, Reb Shlomo Zalman, that's where they all come from, the Talmidim of the Gaon. So, but the Mishnah Berurah concludes that, like the Ramah, the minhag is to make Baruch Shep Torani without Shem v'Malchus, because it's not found in the Gemara. However, the Vilna Gaon says to do it b'Shem v'Malchus because it is found in the Medrash and the Maharil Paschals like that. But the Chazon Ish and Ashkim say that nowadays we do it without the Shem v'Malchus, like the Ramah says.